Okay, let's get started here. We have our railing structure. That's going to be basically the base of the rotor, the Azel rotor. We have a motor mount that's going to attach here to the side of the structure. And then we have our bearing system that will install inside the structure, and that's going to rotate and give us our first axes. So the way this works is that we install the motor mount first. And essentially what we want to do is to install it onto the second hole. We're going to use a little bit of Loctite, just because over time these tend to wiggle loose. And if we do this right, we could pass the Allen wrench through the hole on the other side and then use that to tighten this down. And I won't tighten it until we get both of them in. Put a little bit of Loctite there. If we don't use Loctite, what happens is after a couple of weeks, the structure will start wiggling. All the joints will get loose. Okay, so basically that's going to hold the motor when this goes upright. The motor will fit into there, and then we'll have our gear bearings here. So the next step is to get this installed, and basically what we have here are 7 parts. We have a tube through the center. There's an O-ring on the bottom against the flange of the tubing. There are 2 pillow bearing systems. There's a clamp that clamps onto the tube, and then with that we can bolt the gear to the clamp with this attachment here. So this attachment will pass through the screws through the gearing into the threads here. And this attachment also gives us some extender sockets so that we can add things onto it. So to get started, we're going to slide this through. It's going to attach to the first set of holes, and then the other holes will just line up. Okay, so basically that's our system. I'll go ahead and use Loctite for that as well. We have 4 screws on each side. These are the smallest screws that come in the package, and we want to use the right size screw. If the screw is too short, we won't have enough threads to grip, and if the screw is too long, it'll actually stop spinning, and then we'll try to tighten it harder, and it'll actually it'll bust the top of the screw head off. So essentially we have 2 short screws for the motor mount, and we have 4 short screws on each side for the mounting of the pillow bearings. We'll go to the next size screw, a little bit longer screw, when we get up to the top, and we'll take a look at why that is. So essentially right now all we're doing is we're passing threads through the length of the structure, so you can kind of see how far the thread will go through. Doesn't need to go very far. And I'll get these snug, but not tight, until we get the other side finished. So now let's take a look at the next side. I'll put a little bit of Loctite on that. I'll get it snug but not too tight. So there's 3 of the 4 on this side. Now that they're all snug, we can go ahead and tighten them down just using the short side of the Allen wrench, because the longer side is too much torque. It'll either make it too tight so it's hard to get off, or it'll break the head off of it'll bust the head off of the screw. Alright, now the next set of screws need to be a little bit longer. And the reason is that they're passing a little bit farther. We can see that essentially we're going to go through the gear system into this hole. And this is the clamp that essentially holds the gear. This connector piece holds the gear onto the clamp. Let's get these snug. Okay, so there's 2 out of the 4. Alright. Okay, so now that all 4 of them in, we can tighten them down. Alright, that looks good. So we have our first axes. We have our motor mount. We have the 2 screws that hold the motor mount. We have the 8 screws that hold the bearing system, and the 4 screws that hold the gear onto the clamp. So that's essentially it.
And we will extend the life of the International Space Station, likely by more than 5 years, while actually using it for its intended purpose, conducting advanced research that can help improve the daily lives of people here on Earth, as well as testing and improving upon our capabilities in space.